We left off Yud Aleph and Beis in the Gemara. Okay, the Mishnah said, according to the Chachomim, that if a person gives a get shichur to a shliach to emancipate the slave, according to the Chachom, that it's a schus, it's a merit to be emancipated. The moment the shliach takes possession of that writ of emancipation, he's zocher, he takes possession on behalf of the slave. So if the master wants to retract and change his mind, it's too late. Because the moment he takes it, the shlich lo locho becomes a shlich l'kabolah. He's the agent of what? Of the slave. Based on principles of Allah, Mishal B'fanov. Okay? So we'll just start the Gemara. Yosef, Rav Huna, Rav Yitzchok, Kamei de Rav Yirmiyah. Rav Huna and Rav Yitzchok, they were sitting before Rav Yirmiyah. Yosef, Rav Yirmiyah, Kumanamnim, and Rav Yirmiyah, the Rebbe, was dozing off. Yosef, Rav Huna, Komar, Shmami, no midrabanon. You're able to infer from the Chachomim that the position is that in regard to the emancipation, the master cannot retract. Hatovus l'bachov kono, the one who seizes property on behalf of the debtor, of the creditor, it's a valid seizure. So we discussed yesterday. If a person, let's say, has a person has a creditor, and he doesn't want to pay, and somebody seizes on behalf of that creditor, and he has enough assets to cover whoever the creditors may be. There's not even a question; it's a valid seizure, correct? Because he's no different than the person himself. The creditor himself, if he'd want to seize, he can seize the property. The man doesn't want to pay, as long as he can prove that the money is owed him. So that's not chav la'achrini, right? It's not you owe it. Well, it's a detriment. I prefer not to pay the debt. So around what you pay, but in fact you would prefer not to, but actually you owe the money. So over here, the master wants to free the slave. He wants to free him, and now the shliach wants to take possession of the get shichur on behalf of the slave. When it's chav la'achrini, so you have to say there's a difference. Chav la'achrini over here because it's a detriment. Because here, if you take possession in such a manner, the master is not obligated to free a slave. He chose to free him, but he also has the right to retract whenever he chooses to retract. But if you take possession on behalf of the slave, you've caused him to forfeit that right. So there is a negative side. That's the chav la'achrini. You understand?
Negative for the master.
For the master. We're talking for the master. It's always, whenever you want to do something which is beneficial to one, it's a detriment to another. Right? You have two creditors, there's not enough money to cover one of the debts. So when you take possession on one of the creditors, you deny the other. The other creditor has nowhere to collect from. So it's always to someone else. Here, although it's fully beneficial for the slave, but as a result of you taking possession on behalf of the slave, now the master no longer has the right to retract.
But we would say it's not a detriment to the master because that's what he wants.
No, but he doesn't want that. He should no longer be able to retract. He wants to retract. Now we're saying it's too late. Initially, I only made you a shlich lo locha. I never said I want. So that's going to be the conclusion.
That's what I'd ask.
That's going to be that's going to be the conclusion. Tenu is kischi. If you say, when you say give it, I want you. Everything should be in the best interest of the slave. So he's saying it's fine. I'm relinquishing my right to retract. That's what he's actually saying. That's going to be the Gemara's conclusion.
I have no interest in retract.
Because the word tenu, give, means do what's in the best interest of the slave. That means that he should be emancipated instantaneously. How is he emancipated immediately? By you taking possession on his behalf. So it's not only are you representing me, you're representing the slave to take possession on his behalf. But that was part of the instruction, because the word tenu means tein kischi.
Why would you think when he gives the get shikro that he actually also gives up that right to retract?
Why he's not giving up the right? Why is he giving up that right? Why should he give up why is he giving up the right?
You might
No.
right.
Let's say he would wait a second. Let's say he would give the get shikro to the shliach, and he says to the shliach, it's on the condition that the get has to arrive in the slave's hand. That's the only way I'm emancipating him. and he wants to take possession.
Then he's reserved his right.
I understand that. So that's what we're saying the same thing. But it doesn't make a difference. Factually, whether he wants or not, denying him that right has that's a negative. To say zchiyah, it's a negative to someone, we don't say zchiyah. Which we discuss why don't you say zchiyah.
I mean, why wouldn't you say, the master would say, if the slave were here in my presence right now, I would emancipate her. He's not. You're going to have to go across town. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a done deal.
But it's...
So he's not...
Wait a second. Wait one second. He doesn't have to reserve the right. As long as there's an element of negative to anyone, we don't apply the principle of zchiyah. If he would say, I want, that's the conclusion. If tain's kizchi, I'm saying clearly there's no negative aspect to this.
It's almost like saying when it says tain's kizchi, it says become the slave.
Exactly. He says, do whatever is the best interest of the slave. That means immediate emancipation. That can only be if you take possession on behalf of the slave. But let's say you don't say tain's kizchi. When you say give it, doesn't mean immediately take possession on his behalf. So it's open. It's true. I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. But factually, if I had the right and you deny me that right, that's chav. That's a detriment to me. Right? Although I'm okay with it, but it's still considered a detriment. And therefore, we'll see in a moment, you don't say zchi in that context. 1 second. That if you seize property on behalf of a creditor, it's a valid seizure because you're representing the creditor who you took on his behalf. Omer Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef. So Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef, who was his colleague over there, says to him, even if there's some degree of negative, there's a detriment to others, yes, because the Mishnah, there's that negative as we just showed, because the master now cannot retract. Although it was, because it's an open case over here. Yes, no. 1 second. So here Tosas explains to Rav Huna, when it says Rav Huna was sitting before Rabbi Yirmiyah, which indicates that Rabbi Yirmiyah is the Rebbe. This Rav Huna is not the Rav Huna we normally find in Shas. Rav Huna in Shas, he says, Omer Rabbeinu Tam Dein Ze Rav Huna Shemaskir Stam B'chol Mok HaShas. Rav Huna throughout Shas was mentioned, is not this Rav Huna. Those say Godel Harbe Mi Rabbi Yirmiyah. He was greater than Rabbi Yirmiyah. He's not a Talmud. He's not a student of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Lo Yosef Kameg. So he's not sitting before Rabbi Yirmiyah. The old Dekorele Dariki, we'll see in a moment, Rabbi Yirmiyah referred to them, he says children. What you're saying has no relevance. Rabbi Yirmiyah Chavero Sharab Zero. Rabbi Yirmiyah was a colleague of Reb Zero V'Kotman, and he was even at a lesser stature than Reb Zero. Kidama Benido. Boimini Rabbi Yirmiyah Reb Zero. Rabbi Yirmiyah posed the question to Reb Zero. Adkan. Heviu. Rabbi Yirmiyah Reb Zero Lidei Chichuch. Okay. So therefore, the Rav Huna we're discussing is not the Rav Huna we find throughout Shas. 1 second. Adochi Isar Rabbi Yirmiyah. And immediately after they had this discussion among them, of course, Rabbi Yirmiyah was semi-asleep. He paid attention to it. He woken. Amaluhu Darki. He says, children, my children. Means, listen, my small children. It doesn't work. If there's any degree of detriment to anyone, we don't apply the principle of zchiyah. Lo kono. I've told my Mishnah. So how do we reconcile the Mishnah? The Mishnah says that the moment he gives it the get shichur to the shliach, immediately, based on the principle of zchiyah, he takes possession on behalf of the slave. On that he answered, when the master said, give it, he says, immediately take possession on his behalf. So if that's what he said, so he's openly acknowledging, this is not a detriment to me. There's no aspect of detriment. If that's the case, you're able to apply the principle of what? Of zechiyah. Zochel b'shel b'fonov. Okay. So over here, there's the Tosas which we once discussed, and also there's Tosas in Bava Metzia. The Gemara over there in Bava Metzia speaks about a case, one finds an ownerless object, and you want to pick it up for a third party. So if you pick it up for a third party, let's say unbeknown to the third party, could you take possession on his behalf? What?
If it's a positive.
No. Ownless object. Something's ownless. Right? So the Gemara says, it's my question. Why would it be lo kara chavero? Because by you taking possession on behalf of the person you have in mind, you're denying any other finder from taking possession of that item. So therefore there's a negative side to what? For you taking possession on behalf of this one individual. If I want to purchase something to give a gift to a third party, I go to a store, I pay for it, and I have in mind I'm buying it on behalf of that third party. That's my prerogative. Right? It's my who do I want to buy it for? 100%. When I purchase it, if I have mine on behalf of that person, I become as that person's agent. It's as if that person purchased it. And if, let's say, afterwards I would want to take it, you consider it a thief. Although I'm the only one who knows that I purchased on his behalf, but factually you're stealing, because you purchased it on behalf of his behalf. Okay? We had a Tosas. Tosas says in the Bayo, the Gemara speaks about that the Mishnah says that regarding the laws of Tchumen, if a person makes a Tchum, Erev Tchumen, you can't go beyond that wherever the Tchum is. So let's say you have two people in the same community. One person made a Tchum to extend the location he could walk an additional 2,000 amos. And the other person is a member of the community, he didn't extend it. So what does that mean? That means the person who did not extend it cannot go with that person who made the Tchum to extend it, the additional 2,000 amos. He's limited to 2,000 radius of the community. The other party, because he extended it, can. But when he extends it, that means he forfeited the 2,000 amos in the other direction. Right? Okay? Now, the Mishnah says that in terms of items, what determines the limitation to where you could take an item, food or clothing? It's determined by whose possession it was in when Yom Tov began. Let's say Shimon borrowed Ruvain's garment, okay, and he returns it on Yom Tov to Ruvain. And Ruvain's tchum is not the same as Shimon's tchum. Shimon cannot take, or Ruvain cannot take that garment only to the location where the one who possessed it when Yom Tov began. That's called kiragli. So there it says a person draws water. And now he wants somebody borrows the water, or he gives the water to a third party in Yom Tov. So it says it's karagli hamamali. It's determined by the one who drew the water. So Tosas asks a question. Over there, Tosas asks, what about if you draw the water on behalf of another person? Okay? So now the question is, so is it determined by the one who drew the water, or for the one who the water was drawn? The Gemara has a question. So Tosas asks, it's a magbim mitzil chavero. It's like picking up an item, and we rule lo kana chavero. When you take possession, it's not acquired by the third party, because that's considered chavla cherim. So how could you be mali bish? You draw water on behalf of another person. Is it that person's, or is it the one who drew the water? If you say schio, we have a question, maybe. But if there's no better than magbim tzil chavero, that's Tosas' question. David, you have the question.
Water from a stream or whatever, it's also a chavla.
So Tosas answers that when you're dealing with an object, whoever takes possession of that object, no one any longer has the opportunity to take that. Water is unlimited. So when I take water, there's enough water for others. So therefore, that's not classified as chavla achrin. That's what Tosas answers. He differentiates between magbim metzia and the water which is ownerless, which is there for everyone to take. That's how Tosas differentiates. Okay? But it says, magbim metzil chaveru, Rabbi Yochanan is lo kana chaveru. Lo kana. Because by denying someone else the opportunity to take possession, although he never had the right, or it's not he had a claim to it, doesn't make a difference.
They're always better off just take it yourself and give it to your friend.
If you take, but how do you transfer to your friend? How do you take? You're in a certain tax bracket. You don't want to be brought over that. Okay? Okay?
But why wouldn't it? If a man takes it for himself, he has a right to take it for himself. But now he wants to transfer it to his
So good. So you have to give it to you give it to the third party, because that's not operating with the context of schiyah. I took it for myself. Now I want to gift it. You can do anything you want with one. But here he wants to use the principle of schiyah, that I should represent him based on the principle of zochalim shel b'fanav. That you can't do if it's a detriment to others. If you're denying someone else the right of taking possession, even if they have no claim. Not you're denying them an opportunity where the opportunity was available to them. That's discussion. No, but that's the discussion in the Gemara there. Is that called a chav? Or is it not called a chav? But Rabbi Yochanan says, "Magmin tzil chaver, lo kon a chaver." It's a chav. Finished. That's what he says. Okay. Yeah, there's a question in the Gemara. Okay. Now.
So theoretically, the whole world owns that.
No, they don't own it. They have a right.
Potential.
They have a right.
They have a right to it.
Correct.
Even though it's a theoretical concept. The man in China, I mean,
He has the opportunity. If he walks by, he can pick it up.
No. Let's talk about this. You're on a desert island, and you find something, and you have in mind you want to acquire it for a person somewhere else. People don't even know it exists over there. It's not available to anybody else. What about if there's a question, we had Shemesh of a Pruta b'Modai. Right? A person marries a woman with something which is worth less than a cent, but in Modai, it's worth a cent. So how do you deal with value? Is it based on the location or elsewhere? So over there's a Ran. The Ran says, what about if you marry with a food item, and if you transfer this, it would spoil. You bring the Modai. There's not a question. If it's less than a Shav Prutia, regardless of what it would sell for a Modai, that's Poch M'Shav Pruta. So let's say you're on a desert island and you want to acquire an item. So anybody theoretically you'd bring the item there, it would never make it off the island. Could be it's not a Chav L'Acher. It's not a Chav L'Acher. What do you say? Maybe in principle, by me taking possession on his behalf, I'm denying other people the opportunity, but there's no opportunity. It doesn't exist, the opportunity. Okay? So via Tosa cites Rashi, in Bava Metzia, famous Rashi. Rashi says, when do we say Tovs V'achov Mok Chav L'Achrini, it's lo kona? It's only if you're following the principle of Zechiyah. But let's say he would point you a shliach. He would point you an agent to what? To pick up the object. I say, I want you to pick up the object on my behalf. Rashi says, no, Zechiyah is also him. Zechiyah is also him. Right? As we mentioned, Tosa says in Ksubis, because we would say with certainty, if he would be aware that I want to do something on his behalf, he definitely would point me to be a shaliach. So that's the equivalent, that's the shliach. And that's Tosa's question on Rashi. How does Rashi differentiate between Zechiyah and when you point him directly to be a shaliach? Zechiyah itself is he's appointed to be the shliach. So it should be no different. That's Tosa's question on Rashi. Right? Rashi makes a differentiation. Okay, discuss in a moment. Okay, so how do you reconcile Rashi? So we always mention the Ktsos. The Ktsos HaChoshen learns differently. The Ktsos asks a question. I mean, what David is mentioning. The Gemara says, "Yish lo midash lo aviyush." If a person would have known, he would have despaired, but he's unaware that it's there. Theoretical situation, we don't apply the principle of yush. So the cases, in the community, that after all the poor have gone through the field, right, we say demiyayish, because they figured the people in the community, they despair, but people from the other community, they're unaware what's going on in any other community. So how are you permitted to go after the poor have gone through the field to take what, if you find something, you're permitted to take it? Because we apply the principle that the poor of the community despaired. What about the poor in other communities? They're not even unaware that it exists. And theoretical despair, we don't apply the principle. Theoretical. That's Yishlo Midas. More answers. Because every community knows that the payo, or the gleanings, is something which is available for that community. Each community has in mind what's not now community when we despair, and what's now community that's what we're focused on. That's what the more answers. That's what you're referring to. No, but that's called conscious despair. It's conscious. Because something I have no relevance to, I have no interest. That's designated for that community itself. Okay? So the Tosa Koshin answers Rashi this way, that because he asked a question on Tosas. It says, if he would have known, he would definitely have appointed me a shliach. Right? That's how Tosas learns. Schimitam shlichus. How do I become his agent? He's unaware that I want to be his agent, to do something on his behalf. But if he would know that I want to acquire something on his behalf, and the only way it could be transferred to him is only if I'm his agent, he would have appointed me to be his agent. So though consciously he didn't appoint me, we see it as if he appointed. No, I'm saying Tosas. That's Tosas, okay? So the Tosa Choshen asks on Tosas, but it's Yishlo Midas. Just as we say regarding despair, we don't deal, if he would have known that he lost it, he would have despaired, but actually he doesn't know. So there's no conscious despair. So knowing, if I would have known that you want to do something on my behalf which is beneficial, I would have appointed you. But based on this principle, we don't say that. It's the equivalent of the Yishlo Midas. That's the Tosas question on Tosas. Okay? No, that's not the Chavos. The shlichus cannot. The shlichus cannot come about. Cannot come about, even where it's beneficial to me and not detrimental to anyone. That's Tosas. That's the Tosas question on Tosas. Okay? Therefore, he explains, according to Rashi, Schia is a Gzer Sakosov. It's based on psukim. The Torah says if a person wants to do something which is beneficial to a third party, the Torah appoints you to be the shliach. Okay? When does the Torah appoint you to be shliach? If it's not a detriment to anyone else. But if it's a detriment to anyone, the Torah will not appoint you to be a shliach. What about if the person himself appoints the individual to be a shliach? Right? Then there's no difference. So that's why Rashi differentiates whether it's a direct appointmentship or it's going through with the process of schiyah. If it's schiyah, it's not valid. But if it goes through, right, it goes through appointmentship, then it's irrelevant whether it is a chav or not a chav. Okay. Now, the way the Gemara concludes here, the Gemara says, but what about our Mishnah? It's chav la'cherim, because by the person taking possession on behalf of the slave, he's denying the owner the right to retract. So Gemara says no. When he says tenu, it's kischu. He says no, take possession. What does that mean? So either it means the way let's say Rashi would say that when I said take it, I'm saying it's not a detriment to me. So if you declare it's not a detriment and you want it to be emancipated as quickly as possible, right? It's not a problem. It's not a problem whatsoever.
Same thing with Rashi, without the word to do, some sort of more general statement would be a problem.
But how do we answer Tosha's question on Toshas? It's a Yishlo Midas. Over here, there's no conscious appointmentship. If he would have known theoretically that he would want to represent him, he would have. But it's clear from the Gemara of Mitzvah, we don't say shlichus in such a context. So how do we answer it? The Gemara says in Bav Mitzvah, other locations, Gitten, that we say chotzesh odem kodem l'shel midato. If you have a domain, if something falls into your domain acquires on your behalf. Right? You have a fenced-in backyard, and the wind blows something into your backyard. An ownless object. The moment it enters into that location, you acquire it immediately. Because chatzer she'odem kodem l'shel midato. One's courtyard acquires on his behalf, even though it's unbeknown to him. Now the question is why? Why does it acquire? Well, it's Gzer Sakosov. Right? But what about, you have to have some kind of conscious das? You have to have an understanding. You have to have an awareness. So, now it's interesting. There's a question which is asked. The Gemara says in Mitzvah that if you buy a home and you find a treasure in a home, in the wall, which is yet from the Canaanite nations. So the halacha is, you're permitted to take it. You're permitted to take whatever's found in the wall of the home. So Tosha said, so the Rosh over there asks a question, how are you permitted to take it? Whoever you purchased it from, the previous owner, or whoever was the original owner, he acquired it with chotzer. The wall of the house, that's his domain. And the person acquired, he was unaware that he acquired it. And he didn't sell him that. So how is the present owner permitted to take possession? The item seemingly should belong to the original owner. Because he acquired, because it's in his domain. That's the Rosh's question. So Rosh answers, when we say Chatzer Shodem Kodesh Lamidato, that one's domain acquires, that's only something that a person, it's within the realm of possibility a person thinks about. He has a mindset, whatever falls comes into my domain, which is likely, I have in mind that I want to acquire it. But something which is so remote, which would never enter your mind, that there's a treasure in the wall, something that he never had in mind, therefore the chotzer cannot acquire on his behalf. The chotzer only functions within a capacity because that's my mindset. But if it's not within my mindset, then the domain does not acquire.
Why do you need to come on to that? Why can't you say, when the previous owner sold the house, if you would have asked him the question, if theoretically I should find a treasure in the wall when I destroy, because my plan is to knock this house down.
He's not
rebuild
knocking.
it.
He's not knocking. No. They lived in houses for hundreds of years, 1,000 years. Talking about a 1,000-year-old house.
I'm saying, the new buyer says to the owner who's selling,
Okay.
I'm planning to knock the house down. I don't know what I'm going to find in these foundations. Are you agreeable that whatever I find there is mine?
Well, evidently it's clear from the Rosh.
Okay.
That would be the understanding that the question doesn't begin.
No, but isn't that, how do they say, it's understood?
Right?
That is
No.
understood.
It's not understood. It's not understood.
How's a person...
No, first of all,
how's
what
a
about if
person-
you purchase
why
house?
would I think that
Wait,
he's
wait.
got a right to that?
Maybe. If we say that one's courtyard acquired...
I don't say
Yeah, yeah.
that, you know.
But let's say the house is not meant for demolition. If it's meant for demolition, that means you may find things in the wall or in the foundation.
I might be doing a
It's not-
renovation in the future.
It's
you know.
not, okay. The Rosh himself doesn't consider that. And he asked the question, this is his answer. I just want to say the principle of why does your domain acquire for you? Because it's within the realm of possibility that such an item may come into your domain. So it's das. Okay? Now, what is a person's mindset regarding Zochalam Shalom B'Fonov? If his mindset is similar to the domain. If anybody wants to do me a favor, or do an action which would be beneficial to me, I say, definitely, there's no question. That is the mindset, that's the stam das of most people. Right? So if that's the case, it's no different than what? Than a chotzer, than a courtyard, something which is within the realm of reasonable should enter, I want to acquire for it. Although I'm not aware, but that is my mindset. So if that's the case, the Tosus question is not a question on Tosus. It's not a Yishlo Midas. Right? So the Zochalam Shalom B'Fonov, we say, with certainty we say, if he would know, he would want him to be a shliach, that is the mindset of a person. So if that's the case, that's what he appoints him to be the shliach. Here's something else. There,
If I would know I lost it, I know I'd be upset.
you would despair.
Right.
That
Why
no,
is that not different?
because a person doesn't despair until he knows factually that is what it is. You don't let go until you're forced to let go. When you're confronted with that news. I mean, the Gemara speaks about a case, the Mishnah, a Brisa, person's ship is sinking at sea, and he screams, "Not miyayish." Right? Right? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So the question is, why doesn't it work? No. Some falls in the ocean. And then there's a scuba diver jumping in. I'm not miyayish. It's around what you say. I don't despair. Factually, it's gone. And if not for him going in, you don't have it. So if the ship is going down, it's over. So a person goes into a state of denial. That's what it is.
So, Rabbi, let's just come back to the person who finds the onerous object and he wants to act on somebody else's behalf. So he doesn't know this rule that he's denying other people.
It's irrelevant what you know.
And he picks it up, and he gives it to Shimon. So what
The
do
one
we
he
say?
picked it up on his behalf?
Yes.
No problem, not a problem,
He
not a
picks
problem.
it up and he gives it to Shimon. Does Shimon own it?
Yes, of course he owns it. But when did he take possession? When Reuven picked it up, or when Reuven gave it to Shimon? When
So
Shimon
that-
took it.
So that's the difference.
That's the difference.
So if this man, this so-called messenger, is on the way to give it to Shimon and he gets robbed,
No, not only
is
gets
the man who took it from him a thief?
no. Based on
That
this, he's not.
object is still owners.
Well, say a more simple case. What happens? He picks it up on behalf of Shimon, and then he changes his mind. He wants to take it for himself. Right?
That's good.
So if you say you cannot be zocher, when you originally picked it up, you have a right to take it for yourself. Until you give it to Shimon, it's ownerless. So if you choose to retain it, you have a right to retain it.
But someone could rob this man on the way, and that man would not be a thief.
Correct.
It's a very extreme.
Why?
it's a-
Actually, he had no
Onerous
interest.
at the time that he robbed.
What?
because
It's
this
still
man-
onerous at the time that he robbed.
Right. It has
Well, I
no.
understand the technical side of that. According to this, that
Right.
there was no owner of
Correct,
this object,
correct,
although
correct.
it's still in this messenger's.
I'll give you an
Dalet-
example.
Dalet
The Gemara
Amos
says,
is possession.
what happens if something's within your Dalet Amos? You acquire it. What about something your Dalet Amos and you go and you throw yourself on it to protect it, nobody else should take it, and your mindset is to acquire it with covering it with your body. So the Gemara says you haven't acquired it because there's no such kinyan as throwing your body over it to protect it. So it's clear his mindset was not to acquire with Dalet Amos, with Chotzer. So if once he gets up, a third party now comes and wants to take it, Gemara says he has a right to take it. Because the person, when he threw himself on it, the what?
Whether someone can acquire it with his almost pair, it only talks about throwing yourself on it or...
No, the pay is not, no, not pay. It speaks about just an ownerless object. We're talking about an ownerless object. Machlokes Rebbe Lezer. Yeah, if he wants it, everything he has to relinquish it to him.
All in one shot. You can't
No,
do the
he didn't acquire it.
So what do you do? It's just in possession of it.
You're in possession of something that belongs to poor people. You don't own it. Let's say initially he picked it up for himself, and he's not a poor person. He never acquired it. So the first poor man comes, he has to give it. So if you hold mokshe chav lachrini by a detriment to others, you're not the poor man's shliach, so you're a rich man. So if you're a rich man, what are you possessing? Something that you have no right to. No, he's not a thief, because his mindset was for a poor man. He's not a thief.
So,
If he denies it, if now he denies it to the first poor man, then he's a thief.
He pointed
Good. He didn't present as a poor man. He took it initially on behalf of a poor man. He's a rich man. So if you say it doesn't work, so he's not a thief because he never intended to take it for himself. He's in possession of something that belongs to the poor. So therefore, the first poor man who requests it, who presents himself, he has to relinquish it to him.
So is this kind of ownership of the poor the same as the Kohanim with Truma?
Same thing. It's called Mammon HaShevet. It's the asset belonging to the Shevet of Kohanim. It's called Mammon Aniyim. It's the asset of the poor.